Welcome back to grade 7 math. We are now on chapter 3.3, which is on Excel. And Excel is an example of a Microsoft application or a program, which is a spreadsheet. And a spreadsheet is just a fancy way of organizing data. Actually, it's quite simple in that you just put numbers in these little boxes, and then Excel can use these numbers to do some formulas. So if I wanted to add numbers, divide them, multiply them, subtract them, if I wanted to find averages of numbers, I can put in certain formulas so that the computer will calculate that for me a lot faster than if I were to use a calculator and to type it in myself in Microsoft Word. So Excel is used, or spreadsheets are used primarily where you have a lot of numbers, a lot of data that you have to calculate. In the financial world, in the bank world, if I'm looking at the sports world, if I'm looking at anything where I have to tabulate a lot of numbers together, Excel is a very powerful tool. So let's just look at some basic symbols first. So the situation is we had a quiz in class and the class results are in. My job is to find out each student's percentage grade and then the class average on that quiz. Well, let's look first at Excel. And each one of these little boxes which has information is called a cell. So a cell is one box in the table. And the cell name is read like coordinates. For example, A1 means column A, row 1. So it's the intersection of the two. So if I go into this, column A1, or sorry, cell A1 has the information student grade in it. The cell B4 has the information 12 in it. The cell A6 has the information 8, and C3 is blank right now, but we'll be filling that in soon. So also what we can do is we can do some calculations, and the symbols are just like in math. So where if I have plus, this means I am adding cells together. If I have minus, I'm going to subtract cells together. Now there's a couple of signs that are pretty tricky because on the keyboard the X normally represents multiplication, but sometimes the computer might recognize that as a letter X. So instead they use the asterisk or the star, which means multiplication, or to multiply, multiplying. And the last, again, the divide by symbol or the division symbol is not on our keyboard, but we can use the slash instead, which represents like a fraction. And so this is dividing. Now, if I were to type these into Excel itself, so let's say I wanted to add 8 plus 12, well, the computer doesn't really know if I'm typing it just as the words or typing it to find the answer. So if I put 8 plus 12, the computer doesn't recognize it as to do the calculation. So in order to do that, we have to use an equal sign. An equal sign is so important because it tells the computer that we are doing a calculation or we're doing a formula. So it tells the computer really that you are doing something. So in this case, I'm going to go back into this and I'll put equal sign, which tells the computer that, or to tell Excel to do some sort of calculation. And now if I do 8 plus 12, it gives me the answer 20. So here we're looking at this spreadsheet. So what I want you to do is to pause the video and open up Microsoft Excel. If you don't have Microsoft Excel, what you can do is go into Google Documents, so docs.google.com, go and sign into your account and open up a Google spreadsheet. So which is exactly like exactly like Microsoft Excel, except it's free. It doesn't have all of the extra features that Excel might have. However, it's basic enough for our purposes right now. And just copy this table into your spreadsheet. If you find that you're running out of space, you can always go in between two cells like this. See that the arrow has changed into, or the cross has changed into arrows? This means I can now change the width of each of these. And if I double click on it, it actually adjusts it automatically. So in this case, I double click it and it'll adjust to the width. It'll predict the width that I want. If I want to add some borders in, I can highlight and go to the borders tab and I can select no border or all borders, for example, and it'll put the borders in. So if I wanted to add some colors, I can add some colors. I can change the font or the sizes as well, just like Microsoft Word. So in order to calculate the percentage grade, what we looked at before is we looked at part over whole times 100 gives the percent. So in column C, I'm finding the percentage mark. So here's how it looks for row 2. In row C2, their mark will be normally 8 over 12 times 100%. And that will give me their mark in percent. However, in Excel, what we want to use are the actual cell names. So in this case, I'll be typing in A2 divided by, and the symbol for divide by is B2, and then times, which is asterisk 100. Notice that there's no divide by sign and there's no X, is that it's a multiply sign, is the asterisk. However, if I type this in, we'll notice that if we do A2 divided by B2 times 100, nothing will happen. Did you figure out why? Because we forgot the equal sign. The equal sign tells the computer, or tells Excel, that we need to do that calculation. So in this case, so we're going to put equal sign A2, and notice the computer already knows that I'm doing a calculation, so that it's highlighting A2. And then I'm going to divide by B2, and it highlights that one in green, multiplied by 100, and I notice that the percentage grade for this person is 66.6% or 66.7%. If I want to, I can change this to a number so it rounds it to 2 decimal places automatically. If it's too many decimal places, I can use the decimal reduce, or I can add some more decimals. In this case, I want 1 decimal place. Now I move on to the next one. So by yourself, see if you could predict what the formula will be for this student who got 4 out of 12 on his quiz. If you got it right, it's equal sign A3 divided by B3 times 100, and they get the answer 33.3. Now let's say I want to continue this on. What I can do is I can either copy and paste. So this one, if I copy the formula and then paste it into this box, it pastes the formula in that box. And then if I go down, I can paste again and paste again and paste again. In regular Microsoft Word, a copy and paste copied exactly what was in the first box and brought it to the next boxes. In Microsoft Excel, the big difference is it's copying the formula. So notice the formula is A2 divided by B2 times 100. Well, in the next line, when I copied it, it didn't use the same exact formula, but it followed the pattern. A3 divided by B3 times 100 gives 33%. For the third person, A4 divided by B4. So Microsoft Excel is quite smart, and it predicted the rest of those. So I can use copy and paste in order to fill out the rest of this table. Another thing I can use is notice this little black square that's right in the corner of the box, in the cell. When I hover over it, notice that my cursor has changed from a larger white cross to a smaller black cross. And what happens is now if I left click, so now I'm holding down the left click of the mouse and I drag it down, notice what's happening. All the other boxes are highlighting. So I'm dragging it down, holding down the mouse. Now I'm going to let go of the mouse, and it automatically copies and pastes for all of the rest of the cells. It's a really cool function. It helps you save time, especially if you have lots and lots of students in the class and you don't want to copy and paste for each one. Then you can use the drag or the fill handle, and the fill handle will fill the rest of those boxes in with the same formula. The last thing we're going to look at today is how to find the average, the class average. So in row 7, let's look at the class average. So in cell C7, there's a couple of ways of finding an average. I can add them all up and then divide by the number of numbers. Microsoft Excel comes with a formula which is called the average formula. And so the way I work that is I put equal sign again, which tells the computer to do a calculation, and then I'm going to type in the word average. And I'm not going to type in the word mean, but I'll just type the word average. Then I'll open my bracket because now I am telling Microsoft Excel to find the average of the following cells. I want all of the cells from C2 all the way to C6. Now, normally if I use a line in regular English means from this to that one. But a line in Excel is subtraction, so we won't be using the hyphen. Instead, we'll be using the colon. And the colon means from this cell, colon, to the next cell, or to the last cell. So this means from to. is the special colon. So if I go back to Microsoft Excel and I type in $average, open bracket, and I'm going to put the first number in there, which is C2. And I could use commas, C2, C3, C4, C5, and C6. I can find the average of all those and do that way, and it finds the average. The way, instead of putting in all the commas, is by using the colon. Average C2 colon C6 tells me all of the numbers between C2 and C6. And notice what happens, that it highlights all of the numbers that are going to be averaged, and when I press enter, the class average is 63.3% on this test. If I want more decimal places, I can change that using here, knowing that I'm now in the number format. Great, so that's just a snapshot of a little bit of Microsoft Excel. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at a couple of more